The question that was asked was, when the browser actually gets this information, where do the tags go? When the browser gets this information, it goes to the head, it says, oh, here's the title, and it applies that title where the title's supposed to go. It doesn't worry about the tags, it strips the tags right away and just knows that this is the title. Then when it comes into the body, it says, oh, here's a paragraph. Takes out the paragraph tags, and just does whatever it's told to do with paragraphs in general. Goes on to the next one, ooh, another paragraph. Do whatever you're supposed to do with that paragraph in general. Then it gets to the end of the body and says, oh, I guess I'm done, and it wraps up the page. So in this example, because we only get so much on a slide, everyone, I think, understands that there's an XML definition that goes at the top of every page. So you just copy and paste that in. And then there's a head section that comes before this, and all you have to do is decide on your title. And the head section we saw is the head section for this body. So when we put it together in an actual example, you'll see the two together. And then this body, what we have is the body opens, and then we have a paragraph defined by these two, the opening and closing paragraph tags. And then we have a second paragraph done the exact same way. And the other question that was asked is the spacing between these paragraphs in any way affected? And the answer is no, because of our white space, because XHTML is not aware of white space. We could put 1,000 lines between these. And it would be really awkward for us to work with, but it wouldn't change the way it appeared in the browser, because the browser would never find out that had all that space. It just isn't there today. All the stuff is all one big crammed together mob of text as far as the browser is concerned. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the definition, the header, and the body together, and it's going to be called sample1.html. We're going to do this. This was done in Notepad. I'm actually going to open up Notepad for you so you can see it just the way you would do it at home. But the way I actually made it was I actually went through these slides and copied out of the slides and pasted them together. So I know that it works because that's how I made it. I saved it to my desktop, and then I'm going to show you where it's saved. I'm going to double click on it, and we're going to see how it works from there.
Wow.
Cool.
How well can you read it? Oh, that comes through really well. Great. This is it, all together. You can see at the very top is the definition. Can everybody see this okay? I know it's a little bit small,
Yes.
actually.
Can you make
Hold
it
on.
bigger?
Yeah, I can make it bigger.
You can make it bigger. It's cut off,
Where?
the edge.
Oh,
Just move it over.
I can fix that. That's interesting. That's why it's all seems skewed. Okay, how's that? Okay, in this top section, now that I have a pointer, if I can find it. All right, right up here, this is the definition. I just copied it. I'm going to copy it for every example we do in this class. At no point during this entire class are we going to not use this particular definition. So it's not something that even during the course of this class we're going to get to. Then we have the head section, starting with HTML. Well, technically the HTML tags are not part of the head section, but we have the head here with the title that we saw. It's got sample page 1. And then here's the body exactly as we saw it in the slide. And then, so are there any questions? This is it all together? Okay. Open up where my samples are. Sample pages, day 1, and like I said, these samples in these exact same folders are on the computers here. So anyone who wants to go see them and play with them can go on and look at these exact samples and see the code. We're looking at sample 1. And I'm just going to double click on this because it's a regular file and it's going to open up the correct application for it.
And you're double clicking because this is Windows.
I'm double clicking because this is Windows. Don't double click on the machines here. There it is. Oh, it went off the page. Hold on. There. See it okay? There it is. There are the paragraphs exactly as I told them. And there is a space between because that's how the browser reads paragraphs. You put spaces between them, it does not indent. You can change that functionality if you don't like the way your browser does that, but people expect to do One of the really cool things is, only so cool, but we can change the size. Everybody's used to this because you've seen web pages. But as we change the size of the browser window, we can see that it really is treating these like paragraphs. It's not just long strings of text. It's kind of wrapped around. All right. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know the paragraph tag is so exciting. But it's the fundamentals, remember. Fundamentals are the foundations of fun. I love that quote. You have to build fun. Oh, of course, it took us back to the beginning. There we go. Okay. When we were looking at that sample, did everybody notice that the title of the page was actually the same? At the top of the window was exactly the same as the title in the code. When we looked in the head section, see if I can just switch back to this. Okay. Scott's sample page 1, remember where that was in the title? And that's where it goes. It actually goes into the top of the window. It's not part of your page. That's why it's special. It's why the head section is different. It's not part of the text. It's actually going up there. And Mozilla Firefox, this is the Firefox browser that we're talking about, the Gecko engine. So we're seeing how Gecko does this. We could open these with Internet Explorer, and they would look almost identical because they're using the same standards. Yes?
So if you call it like the title, you call it the head, could you also make that like an introduction
What do you mean?
to? Like, you know how you're doing a paper and you have an introduction, then you have the body, and then you have the conclusion?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be with the head?
It's all in the body. It would all be there because the head is telling the browser about the document. It's not telling the end reader, the person reading it, about the document. Okay. As we saw, each of the paragraph tags actually turned into a paragraph. There's no longer a tag. And as we changed the window size, the paragraphs remained paragraphs. They acted the way you would expect paragraphs to act in that situation. All right. The power of markup languages is in this, and that we were able to define a paragraph, and that the browser knew what to do with it. As we go beyond paragraphs, this is where we're going to see the real functionality of XHTML. This is where it gets really cool. What we call a document that does this is a self-describing document. You can open up any XHTML, you can look through it. As long as you know P is the paragraph tag, you know where paragraphs are. As long as you know B is for bold, you know what's going to be bold. And all that is right there in it. There's nothing cryptic. Oh, and here we talked about, I just mentioned some of the other formats that use similar markup internally. PDF is the one I didn't mention before that I was trying to come up with. Okay. When it comes to XHTML, pretty much everything really technical about XHTML, we've already taught you. We're through it. Now we're up to, we just need to learn the tags. There's a set of tags. They each do different things. That's it. Now we just need to, anytime we're putting content into a web page, we just need to tell the browser what that content is. So, if we're going to put text on a page, and it's not a paragraph, we're not making a standard written document, this could be a headline somewhere, this could be just a word here or there, or it could be text that we want to define completely in our own way. We can use the division tag. Division is really a flexible element. Its purpose is to allow us to tell it what to do later. And so we can do another page, and it even says on here, the division tag is very boring. Nothing exciting about division at all, but as you get into real design, you start getting into really cool graphics, and you want to make it look just the way you want to make it look. A lot of times you're not going to use paragraphs, you're going to use divisions, because they're designed for you to have more flexibility. So here is another body. We're going to use the same definition. We're going to use the same head, except we're going to make the sample 2 instead of sample 1. And this body is very similar to the one we just saw, except instead of paragraph tags, we have division tags. Okay? Is everybody with me? Okay. you'll notice I have HTML kit on this machine. And Dreamweaver. Did you see Dreamweaver go by? That was on there too. Okay, here's the code all put together. So you can see it's basically exactly the same as the last example. We double click on sample 2. There we go. Notice that the division tags did separate the two groups of text. But it doesn't treat them as paragraphs. It runs them together, but it does start a new line. All division does by itself. It's very blah. But later we're going to be able to do a lot of work with it. But division's really cool. If you just got to put a little line of text somewhere, you don't want it to like skip down 2 lines when it's done. Just use division. That's what this is for. Any questions about division? Yeah. I'm going to try to move on to cool tags as quickly as possible. All right, now that you're making, you're putting text on the page, what will be the coolest thing to do? Well, we need to have a heading for our paragraphs. Just paragraphs floating out there is boring. So we've got the 6 levels of headings like we talked about. Basically, they just go from largest, which is 1, to smallest, which is 6. So here's our sample. We're going to look at, if you look at the top, we've got, let's see where this goes. I always think it's really high. It's not. We have a level 1 heading. This is the biggest one we're going to get. Page with paragraphs and headings. And then we have a smaller heading. So this is our first paragraph. We've got a paragraph. We have another heading, more about heading tags, another paragraph there. And then, another paragraph at the end. So we have 3 paragraphs and 3 headings. Does anybody want to see the code for this? Because we're seeing it on the slide. Does anybody want to see it all put together? Okay. It's a lot cooler just to look at it in the browser. Okay, so everybody see what's happening here? Our H1 heading. It's up here, right? I have to figure out where this is. We get this really big bold text up here. This is pretty big for a web page. And then this is our H2, a little bit smaller. Then we've got a paragraph, just like the paragraph we had before. We have another H2 heading, and then 2 more paragraphs. This is, if you're going to do real basic text, this is all you need. You could make, for years, this is what web pages looked like in the early 90s, mid-90s. This is all they used. 1 or 2 other bold italics, this is about it. It's as exciting as it got. So you're already up to 1996, just in this amount of time. Okay. We already talked about white space. Does anybody have any questions about the whole white space thing? All right, pre-formatted text. One of the things with using the paragraph tags, it's designed, the white space thing is really a big deal. There's no way to like format text. And a lot of times you need to. You need to have 2 spaces between things. But only for a specific thing. So there's a specific tag designed for this, the pre-tag, because it allows you to pre-format. Anything that occurs inside the pre-formatted tag is going to stay exactly the way it was. And that's about all I need to tell you. It's really common for putting in code, putting in tables, for pulling things out of other sources. And so I made up a little example. I think this looks really cool. Of just making a grocery list real easily in this. And I just use tabs to line everything up. And if we did this with the paragraph tag, we would just get one big goop of stuff because there'd be 1 space between each thing on 1 big line. But if we look at the example 4, all right, does everybody see how that worked?
Where did you get your pre-formatted tag from?
What do you mean?
When you type in pre in the tags, how does it know to do a table?
Because it's pre-formatted.
And where
This
did you
is-
get that from?
I typed it in. This is typed in.
But HTML recognizes that you're going to be using a table?
No, there's no actual table here.
Okay.
This is nothing but pre-formatted text.
Okay.
Does that make sense? All it's doing is including the white space, and, as it's going to mention on the next page, it also uses, naturally, a monospaced font, because typically the font that's used is variable spacing, so that if you have 5 spaces between letters, those change in size depending on what it's doing. It switches over to a monospace, so everything lines up no matter what. It's a lot more like a typewriter. And so if we look at the example, you'll notice that, if I can find it, you notice that the font is different in the pre-section. These are, it looks a lot more like a typewriter, whereas this looks a lot more like a newspaper. That's the pre-switching it so that it keeps the formatting exact. Okay. This is twice today that it's deleted that page. Not sure why this page is getting deleted. Block level tags. The pre, the division, the paragraph, and the headers all are what's called block level tags. They have a specific function. All text on a page must be in a block level tag. They're the base tags of everything. This is really what we're going to build off of. One of the real important characteristics of a block tag is that at the end of a block, you're always going to go on to the next line. It's never going to continue on to the same line you were before. Now what we need to do is we need to be able to work within the blocks. We need to be able to say things about individual parts of that text. And this is where we use inline tags. And in this case, inline text formatting, because we're working with text. Inside each of the blocks, we can use any number of inline tags. And inline tags can go inside other inline tags, but they have to have a block to go inside of. And these are 10 that we're going to be working with. So suddenly we just went from knowing 3 tags to 13. Bold, italic, emphasis, and strong, which are actually very similar to bold and italic, and most of the time we'll do the same thing. Bold and italic have become a lot less common now. People have stopped using them. Emphasis and strong is what people use instead. But it's going to take a long time for people to switch over, but it's okay to still use bold and italic. Deleted has replaced strike through. If you need to have a piece of text that has a line through it, you can use the del tag. The inserted has replaced an old tag called underlined, and it underlines text. Subscript does exactly what you think. Makes the text small and low. Superscript makes the text high and small. Big makes text bigger and small. This is our sample using these tags. This is where it starts getting hard to read because there's tags everywhere. Does everybody see how there's tags interspersed all throughout this document? We've got our heading at the top, our H3 heading, and then we've got a paragraph here. We have a paragraph here, paragraph here. I believe that's all the paragraphs. So you see we're putting the paragraphs in a different way so that you can kind of see that there's lots of ways to format. If you're typing a document about this long, maybe you want to throw the paragraphs together like this just because it puts it all in one spot. Makes it a little bit easier to fit on the page. If you're me, I really like to do this. I always like to have my closing paragraph and an opening paragraph together at the front of the line. I just find that really easy to read. So I do that a lot. All right. Is everybody, I don't know if you're able to see this very well. We've got our heading, and then our first paragraph, you can see we have bold here. The word bold is in bold. The word italic is in italic. Bold and italic is in bold and italic. Strong and emphasis are here, and you notice they look exactly the same as bold and italic. You can see subscripting and superscripting. The deleted is strike through. The insert here, the underline, and then here's a whole bunch of them thrown together. And this is really hard to see, but the word big is bigger than the words around it, and the word small is smaller than the words around it.
Can you open it in Notepad and like have them side by side?
Yes. roughly usable. All right. Does everybody understand how this is working? Can you see the thing that I really want to point out is the tag within the tags. Actually, I'm going to switch back to this because I think this is easier. This is easier to read. When I talked about the nesting before, about the tags opening and closing in a specific order, here's where it starts. We're coming at the end of the paragraph, and right now there's nothing open but a paragraph. So as you can see, that we open strong, emphasis, big, insert. XHTML formatting can be fun. Then we close, insert, big, emphasis, strong. Okay? The last thing we had opened was insert, so we have to close insert before we can close anything else. Then the next thing we had open was big, so we have to close big before we do anything else. Then emphasis, and then strong has to be the last one. Does that make sense to everybody? There's going to be at some point where we're going to be doing, and I saw an example of this recently where they said this is a common stumbling block of nested tags, and it really is difficult. If you're working with lists and you put a whole bunch of lists together, you'll start having a really hard time seeing where the tags open and close. But with these, it's not too bad. All right. Just to recap, the inline formatting always happens inside of one of the block tags, inside paragraph, inside division. And these tags add zip and zing to the page. Oh, and always close a tag. No tag can be left open, just to restate that. All right, line tags. This one also got deleted, but this one showed back up again. The line break and the horizontal rule are really cool tags. They don't contain any content. The inline formatting tags that we dealt with, they have information stored between two tags. These tags do not. They specifically are nothing but a single, basically a statement that something needs to happen. So because of this, there's a shorthand method, so you don't have to write an opening and closing, you just put them together because they'll just be convoluted on your page. The first one is the BR tag. It's a line break. All it does is it forces text onto the next line. It's really handy because there's a million times you want to go to the next line, but you don't want to start another paragraph. You want to format text yourself. You want to make a list. Just have a whole bunch of line breaks after words, and you're going to have them all show up as a list. The other is the HR tag, which is the horizontal rule. If anybody looked at web pages in 1996, 1997, every page was just loaded with horizontal rules. They were the key of all web design. And all it is it's a horizontal line going across the page.
Much like the one at the bottom of the slide.
Much like the orange one at the bottom. And they are, they're real simple to work with. They're really easy if you want to separate parts of your page out. If you're going to do a bunch of articles on one page, just put a horizontal rule between them and people know what to mean. Here's our sample. And you'll see that this is a new way of looking at a tag. HR space /. What this is the tag is opening and closing all within one tag. It's a shorthand method. You can write this HR and then another tag immediately /HR. But it's hard to read, it looks weird, people are tempted to put things between the tags, so they made this shorthand method. Everybody uses this shorthand method. You can take that space out. Some browsers will choke on that. They will have problems reading it. New ones won't, but not very old ones will. Okay. Here we have 3 horizontal rules. We have a heading at the top. We have one paragraph, and then in the second paragraph, we have, I don't know, maybe 12 line breaks, putting each of those things on a separate line, each one in italics.
Are those in the order of preference?
Puppies, kittens, hamsters, kangaroos, lunch. Yeah, maybe, yeah. You like the moo cows?
Not just cows, but
Moo cows. All right. Does anybody have any questions about how the line break works? Okay. You will use line break all the time. All right, comments. If you want to be able to leave information in your page, if you're in these little short pages, you're not seeing any reason to do this, but if you're making a real page, there's a lot of information, on a lot of typical web pages. They're long, they're huge, and you might need to leave notes to yourself about what you're doing in a certain spot, what a certain piece of your structure is for, why you're doing it, whatever. So comments are really important because this is a spot where you can write things to yourself in proper XHTML form without it doing anything to the end user. And comments look like this. Has an opening bracket, an exclamation point, 2 dashes, and then anything you type after that will never get processed, it'll never show up anywhere. And then you put 2 dashes and a bracket again at the end, and it goes right back into the page, and it treats it as if all that was white space. Okay? And here's an example where I have a comment at the top, I have a comment after the heading saying that it's a heading, I have a comment, if you look, there isn't much to see in here because almost everything is commented out and won't show up in the browser, but I still hope that you enjoy this example. And then at the end, today we learned about comments. Anybody want to guess what's going to show up when we look at this page?
Today we learned about comment. No?
You will see comment sample. Yep.
There isn't much to see.
Exactly. There isn't much to see in this example. There it is. That is that whole page. One of the reasons that it's really handy to use comments is if you're trying something new out, or you have something in a page and you don't want to delete it, but you can't have it show up right then, you can go in and it's called commenting it out. You can take regular XHTML code, put a comment opening at the beginning and a comment closing at the ending, and all that code just goes away. But it's still there if you need to get it back. Just take the comment tags out, and suddenly all that code comes right back. So it's really handy for keeping notes as to what you used to have on a page. Okay, block quotes. This is really handy. People, when you're writing essays or something on HTML, you're going to need to quote things all the time. So there's specifically a block quote tag to make that easier. This is when you're going to quote more than a couple words, when you're actually going to have like an entire paragraph of quotes. This tag is designed for it. It is important that with a block quote, it must have a paragraph or a division or a heading or a pre-formatted within it. It specifies that the block that is coming is going to be block quoted, but it itself cannot contain text. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. Block quote is not a, when we talked about paragraphs divisions, those were block level tags. They can contain text. The block quote, even though it has the term block in it, cannot contain text. It is not a block level tag. It is a special tag that designates a group of block level tags as being quotes. Okay? And so you can have, in this example, there's only one paragraph within the block quote, but you can have many paragraphs within a block quote. You could have paragraphs, divisions, pre's, and headings all within a block quote. The block quote could go on for a very long time, and all that could be one quote. And typically what it does is, I'm going to make this a little bit narrower so it's a little bit more obvious. The block quote takes whatever paragraph, division, or whatever is going to be inside that block quote and it indents it so that the whole thing really shows up. And this is the same way you would do it if you're working on a typewriter, if you're writing a paper. This is how you do a block quote in regular English. That's right? Yes?
If you took out the block quotes, everything using a block quote, all of that text would just go in with the other paragraph? I'm sorry, if you took out the paragraph inside the block quote,
It would not be correct
it wouldn't
XHTML.
be it wouldn't be indented like that, right?
It
Would
would be XHTML.
Oh, okay.
XHTML requires there to be block quote around other legal things.
So it would work, but it would be wrong.
It might work, depends on the browser you use and the setting.
Okay.
Because of the definition of it, the XML definition we're using, that is going to tell the browser not to accept anything that is wrong. It might, some of them do it anyway, but it's telling it not to. Is there any other questions about the block quote? You won't use it that often, but it's neat to have when you need it. All right, inline quotes. This is a lot more common. Sure, when you're making a web page, you can just put in quotation marks. That's one option. The advantage to using a quote tag, which is just a Q, is that whatever browser is reading this, whatever piece of software is going through this, knows it's a quote. It's not just a quotation mark for some reason. It's not a person saying something in a story. It is an actual quote. And so you can actually have a specific piece of software that goes through and pulls quotes out of things. And it can go through and say, oh, here's a quote, and it knows that it's a quote. So this is where the structure starts becoming important, that, if something's bold, there's not a lot of reason to know something needs to be bold, but there is reason to know that something's a block quote, something that's a regular quote, something's a paragraph. There's reasons why we can use those. If a screen reader is reading this, it will know to do it in a different voice, to pause appropriately, to act like it's a quote. When you do use that in an actual example, apparently I don't have one sitting here, it actually just puts quotation marks. You'll see nothing different on the page. And actually Internet Explorer doesn't support the quote tag correctly, and you'll see nothing. But all the other browsers show it because it's part of the standard. At this point, we get to talk about attributes and where we're actually going to use one. This is actually where the tags start getting even a little bit cooler. The quote tag has a cite attribute. Cite as in C-I-T-E, cite. When you're quoting something, you can cite where it came from. If we look here, here's our quote tag. Starts with a Q, and then we have the cite attribute here. And it equals, and then anytime you're doing an attribute, it has to be inside of quotation marks. And I'm not sure I spelled Friedrich Nietzsche correctly, but Friedrich Nietzsche is my citation for this quote. You can use a person's name, or you could put in a URL like we had talked about. So if someone wanted to reference another web page or something, it could be here in these quotes. And then after the tag, here's the quote, and then the quote ends. When you stare into the abyss stares into you. One of the most famous quotes ever from German philosophy. And if we go to, anybody know what sample number we're on? 9. If you look here, what happened was practically nothing. While I was at school today, I discovered that when you stare into the abyss stares into you. The quotation marks showed up. There was no quotation marks in the XHTML that we wrote, just the quote tags. So the quotation marks were put in by that, but the citation disappears. But the citation is there. If someone needs to look it up, they can look at the code. If you have a browser that's going to tell you information about the citation, it can use it. That information is stored in there correctly. It's all structured. Is there any questions? Hold on. Like we mentioned, this is where we have to talk about browser support. Unfortunately, Internet Explorer, Microsoft, made the decision that quotes weren't important and they weren't going to support the tag. It doesn't fail on Internet Explorer, it simply does nothing. It is a correct tag, so they're not going to reject it. But you're not going to get your quotation marks, it's not going to accept your citation, it just ignores it. This is unfortunate. There are a number of tags that are treated this way by a lot of browsers. There's a lot of really kind of unimportant tags that it's important to know that they exist, but you will probably never use them for this reason. And here they are. These are the tags you probably never want to use. These are all real tags. They're all under the XHTML standard. Somebody supports every one of them. The first one's abbreviation. If you're going to put an abbreviation in, you can use the abbreviation tag. It's cool because you can, sometimes some of the browsers will let you hover a mouse over an abbreviation, and after a second it'll tell you what the abbreviation was. It's a nice feature, but not everybody supports it. Acronym, same thing. You use an acronym, you can put in the information about the acronym. Someone's address, so that if there's a screen reader or something going through the page, it can say, "Ooh, this is not just text, it's the address." All of these are neat, but very few of them are actually useful in regular usage. Code, if you're going to put a piece of software so that someone can read some programming code, you can put it in the code statement and the system will know that it's code. But not everything supports it. Any questions about these?
Can you
Basically,
give
the
an
whole
example
story
of an
here.
acronym? I heard somebody ask what it was.
Oh, acronym. A good example would be XHTML. If you're going to put the letters XHTML onto web page, you can put them inside of an acronym tag, and you can have some attribute that I don't know the name of that says this acronym equals the extensible hypertext markup language. So that if someone wants to look up what your acronym is, you don't have to put it right on the page, but they have a way to reference it. Like I said, all these tags are avoidable. Don't worry about these tags. If you want to use them, great. It's not going to make any browser break. But if you don't want to use them, there's really not a point to them. You're going to be fine without them. Okay. The core of the web. What makes web pages really cool? Besides the fact that you can see them anywhere. Besides the fact that you can do all kinds of structured markup, which is really cool to people who are into computers, but not really cool when you're just designing a page. Hyperlinking. This is the coolest thing. When you're on a page, everybody knows links. You click on a link, it takes you to another page. You couldn't do that with a book. You couldn't do that with regular text in a text document. This is what's cool about the web. This is where the name of HTML, hypertext markup language, came from, because it was all about hypertext. This introduced us to the idea of the non-linear document. People don't read straight through things anymore. People read, they start at the beginning, they go to a point, they say, well, this article was kind of interesting, but I want to find out more about this thing they're talking about. Oh, here's a link. Go to that. Go to another page. Read about that. Oh, this was cool. Now I'm getting bored with this. Oh, I'm going to go to this. Go to another page. Oh, there's some advertising. I'm going to go to that. All those links is what makes it really cool. And obviously, you want to be able to do that. So what we use to link is not the link tag like people would think. There is a link tag that we're going to talk about later. That doesn't do that. This is the anchor tag. But you can think of it that it's A, which happens to be for anchor, but the reason it's actually is because it's the most important tag, so I just gave it the letter A. It's probably true. I don't know. Yeah, I made that up, but it's a good way to remember. Yes, sometimes I make this stuff up. The A tag does not work on its own, however. It must have an attribute. With the quotation, we talked about the site attribute. You can use it if you want to. Most things aren't going to do anything with it. But with the anchor tag, it does nothing without the href attribute. It needs it. It's its whole purpose. Because there's two pieces of information you need to know. You're going to mark up a piece of the tag to be the anchor. But once you've marked it up as being the anchor, it needs to know where to go. And so href, which stands for hyperreference, is the attribute that tells it where it's going to go. And so here's 3 examples of working anchor tags. The first one's just an example. A, the href equals whatever URL you're going to use. Don't actually put URL in there, it won't go anywhere. You know, the name of the link. Okay, if you're going to yahoo.com, this is how you do it. This is a real link to Yahoo. http://www.yahoo.com, and then between the tags, Yahoo, or my favorite web page, or a place to go check out, a search engine, whatever you want. You can put whatever you want on your page, as long as you have your www.yahoo.com correct. When they click on those words, it will take them to the place they want to go, or the place you want them to go. They may not know where they're going. Same one. Here's one with with Microsoft. It wouldn't let me format it in a logical way, so it kicked me down to the next line. But this would work because white space doesn't matter. And you would click on the words Microsoft's main website, and off you would go to Microsoft. Any questions about how links work? These are going to be, you're going to be using these everywhere.
So in order to tell it where to go, you say, anchor this word to reference equals, and then you do use quotation marks.
Yep.
And then within the quotation marks, you tell it where to go, and then you close it out with a tag, Yahoo, okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, this one's a little bit hard to read. But basically, it is just a link on a page that takes you to some great site. Since I'm not actually online here, it doesn't matter that some great site isn't a real site. But you can imagine that it is. Imagine. It's a really great site. Okay, here it is. I was surfing online today and I came across this great article. And I called it This Great Article, but the actual name of the site, which you can see at the bottom here, so maybe you can see, somegreatsite.org/goodarticle.html. Some browsers tell you what the link is going to take you to, and some don't. Safari on Mac really stands out that there's no obvious way to figure out where it goes. You have to take it apart and look at the code underneath. to figure out. But most of them will just tell you right at the bottom. So if we click on that, we will find out that we're not online, and, oh, somegreatsite.org cannot be found. But our link worked because it tried to take us there. Everybody okay with links? Cool links? Okay. If you're going to be linking on your own computer, which most of you are going to be doing, you're not going to be throwing up the server, you're not going to be hosting these things on the internet just to practice. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be working right on your desktop, maybe here, maybe at home. To make a hyperreference that works in these cases, what you're going to do is just the name of your page.html. That's all you need in the link. The thing that's important is all of your pages need to be in the same folder. You can't go jumping between folders because it needs a way to reference them. If you needed to do that, there is a way, but it's going to be really simple if you do it this way. All you need is the name of the page. You don't need HTTP, you don't need any long string, and it's going to take you right there. Hey, that's where we end today. How did we do?
41 minutes.
Awesome. Any questions at this point? This is your chance to ask anything you want. Yes?
Does it make a difference if you type in .com or .org?
Yes, because they're different places.
What's org stand?
Organization. It's officially designated for nonprofits, but anyone can get one. Yes?
When are we going to start? Like, can you put things on the webpage? Like, videos or pictures?
Yes. We will be getting to that early on next Friday's stuff. I want to get to the point where we had like building up to it. You'll be able to put images in links, so you can click on an image instead of clicking on text. Yes?
Do you know the website for the CIA? Like,
Yes.
Did you find that out?
CIA.gov. I go there on average about 2-3 times a week.
Just mention.
The CIA World Fact Book is one of the coolest things online. Yes?
I'm jumping ahead, but I'm thinking about the picture part. Could you put an anchor within your webpage? And so, for example, you wrote Mr. Miller, and the link would go to your picture. So if you clicked on Mr. Miller, it would bring you to that.
Yes.
Okay?
Actually, that takes us back. If I can. La la la. 82 pages. Oh, did I go too far? Oh, there it is. Okay. Web documents and media. Images, audio, video, data, programs. These can be web pages. Nothing but a picture.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you can make, mrmiller.jpg, right? And you can make that a page all by itself and just link directly to that in the browser. As long as you have a browser that can handle images, it'll just show the images.
Okay.
Anything else? Anything else? Okay. Is it way too slow for everybody? Way too fast? Way too boring?
Wait.
Way too exciting?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I can. It does get better, trust me. What we're doing the first 2 days, we're doing the XHTML. I want to get to the point where everybody understands how to put their content onto a page. Then the entire next section is about CSS. It's about taking the structure once we have the text, and then we start adding style. This is where the design comes in. But you have to have structure, unfortunately, before you have design. Back in HTML, you didn't have to do that, but the sites looked awful. And no one could read.
One last question.
Yes.
It says week 1 reading. Unfortunately.
Yeah, oh, yes.
bottom line.
And I promised Dominica that I would fix that. There's 2 readings. One is chapter 3 from this book.
Okay.
Okay, and this is the one that's $2.99 if anybody wants to buy it, but the school has 3 copies, and it's only about 12 pages of pretty big text. So it's less than 10 minutes of reading, probably less than 5. And they sit on those shelves directly behind data.
Do you have to do your homework?
You have to do your homework.
Do I have to go to
No, see?
So that's all it says on this bottom?
No,
line?
and then it also says in this book, which not everyone has, but I do recommend for anyone who is finding this interesting, which may be no one, But anyone who's really looking at learning web design, this is a really great book to have, both as a reference and a way to go back and look at stuff. And it's chapters 3, 4, and 5, I believe. Page 47 to 82, I know that. No, chapters 2, 3, and 4. I'm sorry. So if you can get the Castro book, if you can get a hold of a copy of the Castro book, if a couple people want to get them and share them around the class. And if you have a teacher pick this up for you at Borders, it's a 20% discount. It's not too much reading.
Really caught.
It's 22 list price, so after a teacher discount's like 17. A regular textbook is in the hundreds, 90 to 110. Normal price for a textbook. But the others are only $3, so depending on if you're doing a lot of web design, if you're doing like this one is 35, but we're not doing this one. It's just the one I'm running. They get into the 50s pretty easy. Yes.
So if you wanted to make your own web page just for the fun of it, could you go on an internet site and kind of make it like that?
Well, you can start your own doing this stuff.
Like if you don't have it.
As far as, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Like, well, I don't have internet, but if you do it on the internet,
Mhm.
like you just, because when you go on the internet, you have like the basic page, the default page or whatever, and you have the search where you go to from that.
To make a page?
Yeah.
You make a page on your local computer. Being on the internet is not really part of making a web page. Even hosting it is not.
There are certain hosting places that let you make pages,
Yes.
but don't.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
go to, now, it's been a long time since I've tried to do any of the free hosting, make your own page kind of thing. Is AngelFire still around? Is
GeoCities.
GeoCities, are they still around? Really? Those places used to have these tools where you like type in your title, type in your, and it'll just be like this little form you filled out, and things would look awful, so awful.
Besides that, there are a lot of bugs in there, parasites in there.
Oh,
That
okay.
when people open them up, and they go into other people's computers. They have to be careful about that.
Okay.
I would say don't use any of that stuff until you're really, unless you're really comfortable and you won't want to.
Right,
that.
because you really don't get to make much. You end up with a cookie cutter looking site that if you see anything at like AngelFire, they look bad. People don't want to look at it. But when you're putting your first page together, it's kind of neat because you can do it really quickly. But there's nothing that you did in there so that you don't even learn anything from it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, that's a page. Woo! But you can go home and do this today. I know this part isn't very exciting, but after we hit CSS, you're going to be like, wow, I can take this stuff that I typed up and do cool things with it right away. All right. Well, we don't have to all sit here. You can go home.
The thing about not doing the reading and not doing the homework is that you will fall further and further behind in the class and not understand it, and it'll just turn into a big jumble of things that you don't understand. So doing the reading and doing the homework will help you, help
The reading is
reinforce
really
what
short,
we've done.
and the reading is covering the same material. It's just reinforcing it in a different way.
Well, then why do we need to know it if it's covering the same material?
I'll back
Because
up.
it's good to reinforce things in different ways when you're learning.
Don't already do this
Have to read
buy
it.
them.
You don't have to go buy the books. The one book is here, but it's the cheap one, so it might be worth buying. If you're going to do any website design, you're going to want to have a book, and not the little one we have here, the bigger one. The one comes along. The really big thing to do this week, because the slides really do cover quite a bit, I think. The really important thing is not so much the reading as it is doing.
I'm telling you, this dog and I are going places. I'm talking about a 3-picture deal with Warner Brothers here. My boy.